Welcome into the VandySports Podcast on the 440 Sports Network. I'm your host, Billy Derrick, alongside Joey Dwyer. We are brought to you by Anchor Impact, the Wash House, the Murfreesboro Pure Milk Company, Sutherland and Belk, and the Maynard Nexon Government Contracts Group. Commodore Nation, get closer to Vanderbilt athletics than ever before with Anchor Impact, the official NIL collective for Vanderbilt University. Gain access to unmatched exclusive coverage and be part of a one-of-a-kind community. As an Anchor Impact member, you gain exclusive privileges and benefits, offering deeper engagement with student athletes, coaches, staff, and the entire Vanderbilt community. Access behind-the-scenes content, exclusive events, unique merchandise, and personalized experiences, creating an unparalleled connection with the student athlete's journey. You also can become a catalyst for change, redefining the landscape of college athletics and showcasing the potential of NIL on student athletes' lives. Help the Commodores thrive and contribute now by logging on to anchorimpact.com/register. Joey, that ad there is pretty
Pretty
key right
fitting,
now.
yeah.
Yeah, pretty fitting. A key ad there because right now Vanderbilt fans are kind of sitting in, I guess I could say, limbo with players leaving, players coming in. You still need a strength and conditioning coach. You need an offensive coordinator, on the football side of things. So it's interesting how things are heating up in today's NIL transfer portal era, especially this month. I mean, the month of December is nuts. So it should be a fun next several weeks, to say the least.
Yeah, I think this will be the most active Vanderbilt is ever going to be in the portal with Clarkley, and far and away the most active it has been. It got 3 transfers last year, one of which redshirted, one of which was a kicker. Billy, do not expect that this offseason. Vanderbilt, I think, is going to get the most transfers that it has under Clarkley, and it's also going to lose as many guys as it has under Clarkley if it hasn't already. It's lost some guys who are real impact players, but attrition I don't think is necessarily an awful thing for Vanderbilt, and it opens up some excitement moving forward with what Clarkley can do, and feels like Vanderbilt's willing to do some things it hasn't been able to do in the past and hasn't been willing to do in the past. So it'll be an interesting offseason and one that it feels like Clarkley has more of a chance than he's had in the past. Now it's time to do it and prove that him and his staff can take advantage of what it feels like Vanderbilt has going for it right now.
Well, it's also the sheer numbers of the amount of players that have left, right? Just to refill that roster back up, right? I mean, you look at the guys that have left, and we're going to get into this, Joey, but a lot of offensive players. I mean, the entire offense is basically gone. 3 quarterbacks that took snaps, your 3 best receivers. Of course, a couple of offensive linemen. Ashmore declared for the draft. You did lose a young guy, Barrett Maddox. You lost Hernandez. So, you lost some really, really important pieces there on offense, but it was an offense that statistically was worst in the SEC, right? On a team that went 2-10. So I want to kind of hit on that throughout this episode, Joey. We won't be super long today, but really describe the essence of what's going on right now and what it means for the future, right? What are we going to be talking about in about a month for Vanderbilt football? Are we going to be, telling fans to slow their roll because they might have gotten too excited about a lot of these players coming in? Or, are we going to be saying, I don't know how much of an impact this will have? So either way, there's going to be a lot to talk about after, this month and even the next couple of weeks because, Joey, we've also got coaches that'll be coming in as well. And I want to touch on that a little bit and the timing of, okay, you're trying to bring in quarterbacks, trying to bring in players for visits, all types of different things. Do you have an OC in place, right? What do those conversations look like? There's a lot that we don't know is going on. I mean, we think we might think we know, but Joey, it's such a wild time. I mean, of course, you know it with basketball after the basketball season too, but I mean, for football, especially with a lot of these teams that are prepping for bowl games, it's almost like a lot of these coaches take these first couple of weeks, maybe week and a half to 2 weeks to dive into the portal just like everybody else. And then they'll start to really hone in on their bowl matchup because a lot of them are later. So it's just a crazy time. And I can't imagine Vanderbilt. Could you imagine Vanderbilt prepping for a bowl right now, but also he try, because their bowl would be earlier than, it wouldn't be likely New Year's Day. It'd probably be December 28, 29, 30 type range. So, one of the earlier bowls. I mean, I couldn't imagine being a coach right now. And, well, do we prep for the bowl or do we hone in on NIL portal? I mean, there's There's so much, Joey.
I mean, look at where Clarkley's old program is, Notre Dame. Notre Dame's lost essentially its entire receiver room. It's lost Holden Stays, who I expect Vanderbilt to be a factor for at least. And then it's lost some guys off its defense, and it still has to play in a bowl game. So it's a wild landscape. I think Vanderbilt maybe has a leg up here just because there's been so much attrition and there's so much roster open for them. And all they have to focus on right now is the portal, the offensive coordinator role, the strength coach role, and keeping their guys from signing day. It feels like Vanderbilt's in a spot to be able to maybe capitalize here while other teams are preoccupied with other things. Obviously, some other teams are going to have better pitches to these guys, but Vanderbilt, I think, is really able to hone in on really what it needs to focus on here. And it's going to have to add a big portal class. And like you said, a 2-10 team should have guys leave. And I think there's some guys who were difference makers. London Humphreys, obviously. Jaden McGowan, I think, is a good player. But I feel pretty good about Junior Sherrill coming back and where that stands. But you never know. We also thought well of London Humphreys coming back. So we'll see. I think it's huge that C.J. Taylor comes back, as well as Langston Patterson. Those are their building blocks defensively. And right now are their two best players heading into next year. Really big that they got C.J. Taylor back. And I think that kind of tells you maybe they have a little more in terms of NIL and resources than we had thought if they're able to keep a guy like that, especially Langston Patterson as well. So, Billy, it's going to be interesting to see how many guys they can add and what caliber of player they can add. Like you said, it's going to be really interesting to see if we're singing the praises of this staff in a few weeks or we're saying, what the heck are they doing? How are they not getting anybody? It'll be a real roller coaster ride, and I guess that's what every offseason is going to look like now, especially if you're not winning a whole lot of football games. There's going to be a lot of attrition, and for Vanderbilt's sake, maybe this is the last one that has this level of attrition. But if you go 2-10 again, not going to be that way. Vanderbilt's going to have to bring in some transfers that excite people and going to have to bring in guys that fit their culture as well.
I want to follow up on something you said there, Joe. You mentioned the defensive players, right? You've got the foundation pieces with C.J. Taylor and London Humphreys. But first, we're going to continue to dive into that. Who did I? Oh, London.
No,
the names go together right now, Joey. Langston Patterson, not
in high school, hated it. So,
oh man, Joey. The names go together. Langston Patterson and C.J. Taylor, not London Humphreys. London Humphreys has officially entered the portal. We'll see. Again, there's a conversation to be had there on the other side of things, I think, as well. But let's get to those topics, Joey. And this season's baseball content presented by the Murfreesboro Pure Milk Company. They are a family-owned third-generation milk and ice cream distribution company located in Murfreesboro. That partnership began over 50 years ago with Purity Dairy in Nashville to provide purity milk and ice cream to consumers in Middle Tennessee, and they now serve Southern Kentucky, Northern Alabama, Chattanooga, and North Georgia. Today, they supply grocery stores, convenience stores, and others with Purity products, as well as Mayfield, Nestle, and Haagen-Dazs ice cream. For more information, visit their website at mpmci.com. Joey, let's get right back into that conversation. I like how you mentioned those defensive players, not Humphreys, but Patterson. Of course, both CPA guys. Patterson and Taylor. I mean, you almost had to have those guys back. Well, not even almost. You had to. You know, you had already lost Derrick Wright. You lost Savion Riley, which I was a little surprised by. I thought Riley projected really well, especially in this defense. But it'll be interesting with a guy like a Dante Carter coming in. You know, you would expect a guy like that, as excited as they are about him, to start, at least likely start day one. But you look at that kind of that middle of that defense, and you look at Taylor and Patterson, and you go, whew. I mean, imagine losing one of them or both of them, right? I think that says a little bit about the respect defensively for Clark Lee. Right. He coached some really good defenses, right, Joey? I think we've talked about, and you being locked into some of those Notre Dame defenses under Clark Lee, especially, was it 2018?
And they made the playoff.
I want to say, that they made the playoff, and Clark was kind of the head of that defense, had some really good players, Owusu Koromoa. So there's respect all around the country for Clark Lee as a defensive coordinator. So I think that says a lot that those players he was able to, I'm sure they had conversations, right? He has taken over the defensive coordinator role, and to basically get those guys in a room and say, hey, I can't do this without you guys, right? I'm not saying he couldn't have done it without a guy like a Derrick. I think they could have used Derrick right next year. I think they definitely could have used Savion Riley next year. But I think in the staff's mind, they know they have Dante Carter coming in. I'm sure they'll bring in a few secondary players, talented secondary players from the portal. That's the difference here, Joey, right? You mentioned only a few portal guys from last year. I think I'd be surprised if you get a portal guy where you go, I don't know, just because of how aggressive they have to be. I'm sure there'll be some where, we may not know a whole lot about, but I'm sure the staff, if you ask the staff, they'll be excited about every kid, right? And I would guess 15 max guys they bring in, maybe even more.
Maybe more, yeah.
Because, I'd say 15 to 20. Because you've lost about 15. I think it's 14. I think I counted the other day. Who knows at this point? Feels like a big number anyway. But Joey, defensively, let's start there. Two huge foundational pieces there that you can recruit to, right? You could say, hey, we've got Taylor and Patterson, our foundational pieces. Come play with them on a really good defense.
Yeah, I mean, their defense was terrible this year, Billy. Probably among, I don't know which metric you use, but in most of them, they're among the worst Power 5 defenses in the country, kind of hand in hand with basketball at this point. But, Billy, you can't win games with how poor they were defensively. There was probably 3 or 4 games this season in which Vanderbilt's defense put it in a position to win. That can't be the case again. And bringing those two playmakers back, I think, is a huge starting point. But there's got to be a lot more done here. There's got to be more on the defensive line. You lost your sack leader and Nate Clifton, who's picked up some real offers, by the way. USC,
yeah, some really good ones, yeah.
Good for him. Good guy. They have some young pass rushers, but I think they're going to need some help there as well. Darren Agu, Issa Wataha, I think will be helpful pieces who maybe take a step. But when CJ Taylor's your second leading sack guy, I think that shows you what you need to address in the portal there. They didn't get much pressure on the quarterback, and that didn't help out their secondary, who I think has some young players who can do good things. Martell Height, Trudell Berry, I think can maybe be foundational guys at corner, but you're going to have some guys to supplement them as well. And then you look at safety, Marlon Sewell, I think could maybe do some things for him, but otherwise I think you really got to hit the portal hard there after losing Riley and Wright. And Mahoney going to the draft, I think Mahoney was a guy who made more plays than people gave him credit for. So you're losing some guys on the back end who helped you. But, Billy, I think it's not the worst thing ever to kind of start from scratch defensively and still have some young guys that you can lean on. Vanderbilt's got to hit the portal hard there. And not only has to get playmakers on the second level, but I think maybe more importantly has to get playmakers on that defensive line just because it was so poor throughout the year. There's a reason that teams ran all over Vanderbilt last year. And it's not only a safety issue. It's not only a corner issue. Vanderbilt has to get better at really all three levels. I think Taylor and Patterson help them kind of on the second level. And then Prince Colley, I think, can maybe be a contributor next year, but they're going to have to do some serious work in the portal. And I think Clark Lee has to know that, being a defensive guy, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Joey, he, like you said, defensive guy, he knows what he's doing, right? He knows he has to get the guys in there. But defensive line, Joey Slackman from Penn, rather. They have sent an offer out to, and Jamarius Dinkins, a defensive lineman from Kentucky. So, and they've sent out some other offers to some talented guys. I think Ohio State safety Martinez, a Colorado State corner, Eastern Washington corner. They've sent out a few corner offers, and again, that's public info, right? You know, those guys tweeting that out. So, defensively, Joey, that we talk about what's the biggest concern, which side of the ball is a bigger concern. I don't even know if I can really answer that right now. I think they have cleared out, so many pieces to last year's team that you look at and you go, this is going to be a totally different team, maybe even a totally different style of team, right? Especially bringing in a new strength and conditioning coach. Do you see a difference there? Offensive coordinator. I mean, do you see a different scheme? How different, I'm sure it'll be different after, last season just not working. I'm not even sure what we could describe that as throughout the season.
Maybe less runs on first down up the middle.
Yeah. But Joey, it's interesting to ask that question, like which side of the ball is the bigger concern here? I think about defense and I can convince myself it's defense, but then I look over at the offense and I go, it might be the offense because, like I said earlier, you lost every single statistical piece of last year's offense, pretty much, other than Junior Sherrill. I guess Justin Ball hasn't left yet.
The running backs.
Yeah, the running backs. And again, those guys weren't stat stuffers, but you just look at that offense and you go, man, how does it get a whole lot better? I'm sure it can, right? And we talked about this, Joey. Like, you bring in a quarterback, maybe they have a commit. Maybe they know who's coming in. Who, again, we don't know, and maybe that is different stylistically for them with the way they recruit right now. But I just look at that and go, man, you got to get that quarterback. Oh, but also you got to get that OC, right? So there's a lot we don't really know right now, but that in and of itself is the issue, right? And there's other teams across the country right now, Joey, that are struggling with the same things. But I look offensively and I think I go, yeah, that somehow might be the bigger issue with this program right now.
I don't even know where to start when trying to figure out which side has more issues. I tend to think maybe defense is the one I'm a little more concerned about, just because they were so poor last year on defense. They got the 2 playmakers back, which I think kind of helps your argument if you're saying the offense is in a worse spot. They also have some young guys on defense who I think will take steps. So I think there's potential there, and I think there's potential for them to have a few playmakers. But also I'm a little concerned just about kind of the state of things and their struggle to build a defense last season and how many holes they really have to fill there. It's not like they have not many holes to fill offensively either, though they have a lot there. I mean, like you said, they don't really have a quarterback right now. I think they have 2 freshmen who are really talented. Drew Dickey, I think, is a guy Chris is pretty high on. I haven't seen him as much just because you guys were the ones at fall camp, but really, they have a lot of ground to climb offensively. They got to get linemen. I think they need another tight end. Cam Johnson's a guy that I've been high on for a long time, but they need another tight end to complement him. They really need receivers, which I think they're pretty actively pursuing in the portal. Running backs, I don't know that they're going to make a huge splash there. I think they like Cedric Alexander and AJ Newberry. They got to support those guys better with a better offensive line, though. It's just when you look at complementary football and say, well, they need a quarterback, to put that quarterback who they get in the portal in a good position and to give him an effective recruiting pitch outside of money, you have to be able to complement him with a good running game and good receivers. And right now, Vanderbilt doesn't have any of those. So it's going to be hard to see where they start. But with the way they've maybe adjusted a little bit here, maybe you have some optimism that they can put together a good group. And we've been told some names that they've been looking at. So I think there's some level of optimism there, but you got to land those guys and you got to be able to put together a full offensive group. You can't just have playmakers here or there. Like London Humphreys was a great playmaker. Will Shepard might be an NFL player one day, but those guys weren't complemented well enough and weren't utilized well enough to be able to be real difference makers when it came to the scoreboard.
You mentioned Humphreys. Obviously, you did your rapid reaction, which I thought was great on Humphreys. So if you guys haven't seen that, go check that out. And Joey also does have a good piece out on basically kind of I don't know if you call it a state of the union of the portal activity for Vanderbilt. Go check that out on the site. But Humphreys is a guy that obviously he's a Nashville kid. We've talked about his dad being a former track coach at Vanderbilt and obviously went to CPA. Nashville kid, homegrown. Vanderbilt got him initially. And he, Joey, is on some sites, right? I don't know if Rivals puts out portal rankings. I'm sure they do, but I've seen certain sites have him as a top 5, top 10 player overall right now in the portal. I mean, that's how much he just catapulted up. And, his stats weren't crazy this year, but the big stat was the yards per catch number.
Oh,
I think he had around 22, I think is what he finished at. So, and that's a big number, right? And if you're scouting a player, you look at that and you go, wow, he made the most of his opportunities. Obviously, Georgia has been rumored as a potential destination, and I wouldn't be surprised if he does land there. I don't think this is a money thing, Joey. I think this is Humphreys looking at this opportunity and basically admitting to the fact that is a lifetime once in a lifetime opportunity, right? Georgia has a player by the name of Ladd McConkey that you watch Ladd and then you watch Humphreys. I think Humphreys might even project better than
Yeah,
Ladd
he's more
McConkey.
talented.
Ladd is he's 6 foot 180. Humphreys is 6'3", 190. He's faster. I think he projects just better overall. So Georgia saw that, they might have upgraded, right? So it'll be interesting to see. Again, it's not official, but that is likely the landing spot for Vandy. It's damaging, Joey, but like you said, with the resources they have right now, that we think they have, that we're fairly convinced they have, they're going to go after that receiver position aggressively. And I think, Joey, that might be the most important position group to attack. I could be wrong there. You may disagree, but you've got McGowan gone, Shepard gone, Humphreys gone, your 3 top dudes. Just like that, right? And so you look at it now, Sherrill, if Vanderbilt doesn't add anyone else, Sherrill's the number 1 guy. I'm hearing good things about Quincy Skinner. We'll wait and see on him. But again, does Quincy Skinner come back? Again, we'll see. But that could be the most important, because Joey, also with the quarterback, what are you telling him? Are you telling him you're going to bring in 1 guy, 2 guys, 3 guys? I think receiver right now, because of the guys they lost. I think we knew it. We expected them to lose Shepard, but that receiver room, it's hard for me to find another group that is as important. I think offensive line is probably close up there, which we haven't talked about a ton, but that receiver group is important, Joey, especially in the portal these next couple of weeks.
I think you got to add at least 1, probably closer to 2 or 3, to put together a competent receiver group. I think they have some
dudes.
Yeah, dudes. Guys who can come in and make an impact for you. You have high schoolers who can do things, but I don't think you want to rely on freshmen. And Clark talked a lot about that throughout the year, that they want to have freshmen who are able to contribute, but they don't want to be able to or have to rely on those guys. The answer to that and not having to do that is going in the portal. And it feels like Vanderbilt is willing to do that with receivers. I think there's a good chance it takes 2, and that's probably the path here. London Humphreys is a loss that I think is really discouraging if you're Vanderbilt. Like you said, Nashville guy, grew up going to First Bank Stadium. His dad worked at Vanderbilt. He's a guy who seemed to believe in what Clark was building, at least at the beginning of the year when we talked to him. It's a kind of a crushing loss, especially when you look at how hard Vanderbilt tried to retain him. It's kind of just the state of things, though, and it's going to be more and more difficult if they keep losing games to keep guys like that. They're lucky they got C.J. Taylor and Langston Patterson back, but you kind of expected they were going to lose somebody like Humphreys at some point, and it's going to be difficult to retain guys like that if you can't win games. And that one was really discouraging and kind of a harsh reality check for Vanderbilt in a week or 2 full of optimism of what they could get in the portal. They lose a guy who it felt like was going to be a building block for this program moving forward. It's a tough loss for Vanderbilt, and Humphreys, I don't think you can blame, and that's maybe the worst part of this whole thing is it's not, wow, he's a traitor or whatever. He took an opportunity that was better for him right now, and I think it's hard to find anyone who would disagree with him taking that opportunity. So, Billy, there's a lot here, and it tells you a lot about the infrastructure of the sport, but the transfer portal works both ways, and Vanderbilt's got to be able to capitalize. And there's a few names we've heard, and I don't think Vanderbilt fans would be super disappointed with those. But I don't know that they're London Humphreys, Will Shepard level players.
Yeah, another name that I'm hearing is Mr. C in the portal for.
Is he going in?
Yeah, he's hopping in. He texted me the other day and said that he's headed elsewhere. I think it might be an in-conference transfer too. So
really,
we'll see where he lands.
Am I going in too? I'm missing the basketball game tomorrow to go to the Lipscomb Belmont game. Does that mean I'm technically in the portal as well?
Rumor has it. Crystal ball, Belmont.
Really? Belmont, wow.
Yeah, I saw that the other day, but no, I saw that on Twitter with Mr. C. I think somebody put it on Facebook Gentry as well. Yeah, that was a good tweet. But Joey, and I want to get into kind of the state of things overall. And hearing you talk about Humphreys kind of made me think, okay, the portal has worked both ways, right? I mean, the natural instinct for fans is to have that meltdown, the postseason meltdown. I'm sure other fan bases have had it. Florida's had a lot of guys leave. Ohio State. I mean, could you imagine, the meltdown they're having right now up there? Other schools too. So, Vanderbilt's not alone. I know it's on the surface, it has looked bad, right? I've gotten some texts from some people just curious about Billy, what's going on? Like honestly, what's going on? And I don't blame people. I think they have the right to be really curious about what's going on, especially heading into year 4.
Billy, how many "what's
You know,
going on" texts have we got this year between the two sports? It's got to be over 200 combined.
well, just this month. I mean, the month of November, or not. Well, we're in December now, but November. I think you put this on the board. You just kind of
Oh yeah,
described worst month ever. And you've only been here what, a little over a year, so it's just interesting to see all this a lot of this could change depending on who they bring in here in the next couple of weeks, right? And that's fans, right? Um, but I think the silver lining is that Joey, because what I'm trying to say is, what if you did lose C.J. Taylor?
Mhm.
What if you or Langston Patterson? I think we said there were certain guys. We said this, I think maybe last episode. Certain guys you just couldn't afford to lose. I had C.J. Taylor on that list. Derrick Wright was kind of an if, maybe for me. They did end up losing him, of course. Langston Patterson and Darren Agu, they haven't lost those two guys. Of course, Langston said he's coming back. Bryce Cowan, haven't lost him yet. Martell Height, Cedric Alexander, Diakite, they haven't lost them. Bradley Ashmore was a guy I thought they would have liked to keep. He declared for the draft, of course. So that's a loss. I mean, I think they liked him a lot. Gunnar
Leadership.
Hansen coming back is big, Joey, and seems committed. He was all over CJ's tweet last night. Leighton Nelson has not announced anything yet. Grayson Morgan, Humphreys is the biggest, right? I had him highlighted, of course, and losing him was big. Junior Sherrill, I'm not hearing anything on Junior. I wouldn't expect Junior to go, especially with some room opened up for him in that receiver room. But yeah, the sky is falling. Some people may say or may think, but for the most part, Joey, out of the guys I highlighted, and that's my opinion, of course, but I think most people would agree they didn't lose a big number, at least so far. And things could change. Maybe maybe they lose a couple of those guys here within the next couple of weeks because the portal is open until, early January. But they also could retain some of the guys that have entered the portal, right? We forget about that. Some guys could come back. Derrick Wright has done that before. I'd be surprised if he does it again. But, how likely is that for Humphreys? Not sure. Probably not super likely. But Joey, that's also possible. So I just want to put that out there. And they got a guy. They've only gotten one guy officially, Zaylen Wood from MTSU. But there's still a ton to happen, right? And you've just got to kind of wait and see. I mean, this is like, and we said this, Joey. We said this is going to be more entertaining than the season. It already has been, honestly. I mean, if you're on the board last night, I mean, that was as much excitement as that board has shown all season, So
I loved going on Twitter last night and seeing just, oh my gosh, what happened on VandySports.com. And I was like, what did happen? I need to go look on the board. And then I just saw the board was exploding. It was unbelievable.
I think we picked up a few subs, to be honest, but
good for us.
But no, yeah, that's what this time of year is for and is all about, Joey. So credit to Chris there, obviously. So go check it out if you haven't. It's pretty hard to miss. But no, Joey, I wanted to hit on that because I think, and Chris, I think even hit on it last night a little bit. I won't get into it, but just kind of the fluid nature of these things, right? I mean, they could land one guy and fans are like, whoa, how did they get him? And, for as many guys have left, I think On3 had I don't know if you call it a hit piece, but, they had a piece out about how many guys Vanderbilt has lost. And it's pretty national news, honestly. I think it's kind of a, Vanderbilt's being pillaged. They can change that, though. But there's pressure. There's tension, I would guess, right now. Don't try, if you're a friend or buddy, former teammate of Clark or Barton or any of those staffers, don't try calling them to just chat because they're busy. I'm sure they're traveling, of course. So just a tough time overall. It's not going to be easy, Joey. But I think there's hope for once this season. Didn't feel like there was much hope. But all of a sudden, I think some things have turned here for the good, but we still got to wait and see. And I don't blame fans that are in a little bit of a, I'll see it. I'll believe it when I see it. Right.
Mm-hmm. The sky isn't falling yet, Billy, but in a month, I think the sky could be falling depending on how this thing goes.
Yeah.
Attrition isn't naturally a bad thing, but to make attrition a good thing, you have to capitalize on the potential and the opportunity that it presents. Vanderbilt basketball had a ton of attrition this offseason, and I think a lot of people kind of wrote off the effects of it. Losing Jordan Wright, I think, was something that Vanderbilt fans weren't super upset about, but I think has really come back to bite Vanderbilt, not having his defensive versatility and such, and losing Liam Robbins was also a huge thing as well. And Miles Studi even, I think, was a little more valuable than people thought he was. But going back to football, I think it could be a similar situation to that if Vanderbilt can't capitalize on what happens in the portal. But it's also got a real opportunity to generate some buzz and some excitement and to take its roster to a level that it wasn't at this year. It's hard to see it going lower than a 2-10 season, but with how little players Vanderbilt has on its roster right now and how little kind of go-to guys it has, it's going to be something if they can't kind of supplement what they lost. But there's a real opportunity too, and when you go 2-10, there's an opportunity to get a lot better. So we'll see, Billy. There's not a whole lot of room to go down. There's a lot of room to go up, though, and I think that's the excitement you cling to if you're a Vanderbilt fan.
Yeah, so we'll obviously there's still a ton to track right now. Players coming in, players coming out, and there is a report actually from Tom Loy out right now. I'm told Vanderbilt is heavily pursuing Notre Dame transfers, defensive lineman Nana Osafa-Mensah, defensive back Ramon Henderson, and tight end Holden Stays. Head coach Clark Lee
heard as well.
Yeah, head coach Clark Lee would surely love to see a group he knows well land in Nashville. And I want to say he recruited at least 2 of those guys. And we've talked about South Bend, Joey. I mean, that's you can pluck guys out of there, especially if you're Clark Lee and half of that staff who, has coached there. So obviously a lot to happen. I'm sure today will be busy. Tomorrow will be busy. I think we'll be able to get an episode out tomorrow, Chris, Luke, and myself. So we'll have some more perspective there. But for football, Joey, again, you got to piece out kind of updating what's been going on, the status of everything. You've also got a rapid reaction to London Humphreys and kind of the repercussions of that. So we got football content all over the place, and we will continue to break down football. We'll have some offensive coordinator. What?
Calling me.
Yes, Joey.
Also, look on the board. I dropped a list of quarterbacks that Vanderbilt is interested in, from what I've heard.
Yes,
I'll give a teaser. Watch out for Sorsby from Indiana. I think that's a guy that we should be watching, and we hadn't heard enough of previously. And I think you heard something about him as well.
I did, yeah. Joey scoops right there.
Full list on the board.
Full list on the board. So another reason to go subscribe if you haven't already. But yeah, Joey, stuff like that, scoops like that, are what fans like. And I think the staff is working their tail off right now, just like every other staff. But the good thing is they don't have, I guess it's kind of a good / bad thing. They don't have a bowl to prep for. But right now, I think that probably is best case scenario right now. You need to focus on, rebuilding this roster because that's what they're doing. Maybe not rebuilding, but revamping, but fairly close to rebuilding. So we will have some offensive coordinator news soon, I would guess. Maybe even a new strength coach announcement here. Even I would guess, Joey, within the next week or so, honestly. So we got a lot going on with football. But real quick, Joey, to wrap up, we do have basketball to get into, and it's crazy. Throughout the football season, I think we would joke and fans would joke that, man, where's basketball? When's basketball season start? All of a sudden, it has flipped on its axis. We're in basketball season, and I think most people would rather talk football. No offense there, but San Francisco tomorrow night, big game, Joey. In all seriousness, I mean, for Vanderbilt, they're sitting at 276 in the net right now. The only lower Power 5 team is Louisville. Am I correct on that?
That would be correct.
That would be correct. So, man, Louisville has really dropped off. Vanderbilt down there. I saw who the other teams down there, but Joey, it's not a good category to be in. I mean, that's I don't think Vanderbilt fans even want to know who they're below. And again, this will probably, like, if they beat San Fran by 15, 20 plus, I'm sure they'll get back up there to respectability. But Joey, that tells you where they're at right now. 276.
Billy, I think either the 275th team or the 277th team is USC Upstate. And you saw how good that group is at basketball compared to what we're looking at. And Vanderbilt is either below them or one spot ahead of them. So that kind of tells you where they're at in the uphill climb that they have to have. Billy, I think people were upset about Ken Palm numbers. Ken Palm numbers look to be doing them a favor based on what the net was doing. They are in a deep hole at this point in the year. And San Francisco would help, obviously, but Billy, they're in such a deep hole that if they win like 6 games in a row, they'll still probably be outside the top 100 in the net. And that is like unfathomable at this point of the season that they can be in this deep of a hole. I don't know that I've covered a team that has done that. Where do I start? Their defense has just been bad. They haven't had 5 guys on the floor, which has really hurt them. They still don't know what their best lineup is because of that, which is a little concerning. San Francisco is going to be a really tough team for them. San Francisco can really guard. They can really push it up and down the floor, and they have some real players as well. I think Vanderbilt could beat them. I think Vanderbilt has a roster that's maybe more talented than theirs, but San Francisco really knows how to execute and really does some things that can mess with a Power 5 team. They beat Minnesota by a lot, beat DePaul by a good amount as well. Neither of those teams are world beaters, and I think Vanderbilt's probably more talented than both of those teams, but we'll see. San Francisco is going to be a really interesting test for them. If they can get that game, I feel a little bit better about where they're at, but I still feel that they have a pretty significant uphill climb, and the net early in the year isn't the end-all be-all, but kind of puts into perspective where they're at as opposed to where they need to be at, which is probably, top 60? I think the lowest rated net team to ever get in the tournament was like 74 or 72 or 77. Mm-hmm. Vanderbilt's 200 spots off of that right now. So there's a lot of work to be done. It's early, which is the good news for Vanderbilt. And the good news is that seems to be finally be getting healthy. I don't know that Colin Smith is going to be ready for tomorrow. I think, doesn't his 4-day period end tomorrow or the day after? I'm not quite sure what Stack said, but something along those lines.
Stack said Saturday that the 4-day ramp up began
Sunday.
So yeah, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Yeah, tomorrow I guess would be that last day. So he's probably cutting it a little too close to play. I would be my guess. Mm-hmm. But we'll see. I mean, maybe it's a situation where Vanderbilt looks at it and goes, we need Colin Smith to win. I don't think they're in that spot. But again, the way they've been playing, who knows?
He would be really helpful against San Francisco just because their best player is a 6'8" forward. Colin Smith's probably their best defensive forward and their best rebounder, besides maybe Van Lubin. So just something to note there. I think Colin Smith could be really helpful for them. It probably would have been helpful against a Boston College guarding Prince of League Bay or teams like that.
Yeah, tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, Vanderbilt, San Francisco. It's a pick'em, basically. So San Fran is listed with a 49% chance to win, I think, with Vanderbilt with a 50, like 50.7. So at least ESPN expects this to be close. I don't know if the line is out yet, Joey, but they've beaten Minnesota and DePaul, but they've also lost to Arizona State and Grand Canyon. So it was similar resume to Vanderbilt. To be honest, at least so far, their best player, Jonathan Magbo, who averages 17 points per game, 10 rebounds. So they've got some dudes. I mean, they've got some players. We talked about the Asian transfer from Davidson. I forget his name, but
Mike.
He was he's a fun guy to watch whenever Vanderbilt played Davidson. I think it was a couple of years ago.
Or Dayton.
Dayton. That's right, Dayton.
I don't know what his nickname is, but it ends in Mike. He's a real niche college basketball player. People love that guy.
Well, that'll be fun to watch, but also kind of a scary stat here for Vanderbilt fans real quick before we end it. San Fran attempts approximately 23 threes per game while connecting on approximately 7.5 per game. So it's not a huge number, 7.5, but that's what Vanderbilt has struggled with, right? Defending the 3-point line. And if they can't tomorrow night, they're not going to win because San Fran shoots a lot of them. And naturally, they're going to shoot well in Memorial because every team does, But I think that has to do with a little bit of Vanderbilt's defense, right? They've got to play better defensively. They've got to defend the 3-point line better. I think they need to get
turnovers.
out. Yeah, force turnovers, get out and run. I mean, you're more athletic than most of these teams you've played so far.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, use that to your advantage, right? Get out and run. Throw some lobs like you did last game, right? I mean, I think that got the fans somewhat excited. I know it's Alabama A&M, but I think plays like that can ignite a team. Maybe it did. Maybe, Joe, we look back that Alabama A&M game and say that's where it turned for this program, but we'll see. Vanderbilt, San Francisco, 7 o'clock tomorrow night. You've also got the Battle of the Boulevard. I'll be there. Not Battle of the Boulevard. I'll be at Vandy. Joey will be at the Battle of the Boulevard, Belmont, Lipscomb. Same tip-off. I wish Vanderbilt played a little bit late. Like, I would definitely go to Battle of the Boulevard if that was at. I wish they would have done this 6 and like 8 o'clock. Oh, that'd be perfect.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
But no, it didn't work out that way. But a couple of good basketball games tomorrow night for the locals to go check out, and we'll see what happens, Joey. So that'll do it. And Joey on our guest line has been brought to you by John Leffen and the Maynard Nexen Government Contracts Group. Maynard Nexen advises government contractors on all aspects of their businesses with a proud focus on matching legal solutions to business needs. Give them a call, 256-551-0171. Also, want to give a shout out to Sutherland and Belk, longest running VandySports sponsor, family owned injury law firm. If you or a loved one has been hurt or in an accident, give Taylor or Russell a call, 615-846-6200 to see what your rights are and if they can help. Also, give the podcast a review and a 5-star rating. That helps us get noticed. If you're listening and haven't subscribed to VandySports.com yet, a lot of scoops out there on the board right now from Chris, Joey. I'm slacking, but I
don't know about that.
I'm kidding. I'll get my weight up here eventually, but it's $99 a year and $9.99 per month. Helps us tremendously. Subscribe to Vandy Sports YouTube channel as well. That is free. So we'll continue to load up content there. And if you're interested in sponsoring the show, email Chris Lee at chrislee70@gmail.com. For Joey Dwyer, I'm Billy Derrick. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you again soon with more episodes of the Vandy Sports Podcast.